welcome back for another edition of Jory's Four Stories. As always, I'm your host, Jory, and on today's video, we're going to rewind back in time a few months to the NFL playoffs that just ended. You know, the San Francisco 49ers blew another Super Bowl. The Chiefs got their third. Excuse me, hold on, let me fix that. But, the Chiefs got their third. And I just wanted to, but as we go into the new season, as we prepare for newer things, new changes and everything, I just wanted to go through some of the more memorable playoff collapses that has happened this past season. So, of course, we're going to talk about Dallas because that was a spectacular one. I'm not even going to kid. That's a spectacular one. The Ravens, because the mind plots that went into that. The Eagles, simply because we saw this coming from a month and a half to 2 months out. And really, you really could have saw this coming all year. But we'll get into that. And then we're going to talk about Shanahan and the 49ers, of course. So, we're just going to get into it. I'm going to talk about the Baltimore Ravens first. Because they lost at home to Kansas City. And if you watched that game like I did. First of all, I'm a Titans fan. My team did not make the playoffs. I did play spoiler alert to the Jaguars stuff. So, bigger things ahead. We have big changes going on. I'm definitely planning on doing a video about that. But look forward to that in the future. But back to the Ravens. Why did this happen? Bottom line, the Ravens thought they could out-chief the Chiefs. And it went pretty much as you would expect. How? Okay. Let's talk about the quarterback play. Lamar Jackson, I went back and watched those highlights, and I went back and watched the game and everything just to kind of refresh what my memory, even though my memory is kind of vivid. Lamar Jackson, outside of a few plays, he did have some good throws, but he had a lot of bad throws. He did not play well. He was confused, and he would look like he was pressing for a good majority of the game. He didn't take what Kansas City. Usually the first rule in playing any type of sport is to take what the defense gives you. He did not take what Kansas City was giving him. The running game. The running game was completely abandoned. You cannot run the ball 6 times in a football game and expect to win a game. It might have happened a few times, but it's rare. It is very rare. Again, even with Lamar, he was kind of off with his legs too. Even though he did have that one good play that made a highlight. But the big thing about the Ravens' failure is the coaching. It's definitely the coaching. It was absolutely terrible minus the defense. There's a reason why Mike McDonald got a job at Seattle. His part of the field, his part of the team did what they were supposed to do. Minus being undisciplined. But we'll talk about that in a minute. And it's like the fact that they had this grand idea to have Lamar drop back 80% of the time against the Chiefs, like he's Brady, and the fact that y'all think that would actually work against the Chiefs, who has the number one secondary, they had the number one secondary, they have good corners. Y'all thought that would work? Delusional. That's delusional thinking right there. Adjustments. There was little to no adjustments made by the offense. If you see the little thing in the background, that's Bella. They didn't even attempt to adjust the game, to tweak the game plan a little bit, to even try to make Lamar feel a little bit more comfortable in this playoff game. They didn't try. The defense adjusted to what the Chiefs were doing. The offense did not. Also, discipline was an issue down the stretch. You had some key penalties that pretty much turned the tide of this game, other than the fact that Baltimore Ravens offense wasn't running like it was supposed to. And if we're going to sit here and try to dice up the blame here, I'm giving a lot of it to John Harbaugh. I mean, you didn't have the team discipline. You did not adjust to the flow of the game. Now, that is also a pattern with Harbaugh, not adjusting to the flow of the game. Think about the last 3 or 4 years ago when they played the Titans. Did John Harbaugh adjust to that game? No, at all. Todd Monken. The game plan was pathetic. You played to Kansas City's strengths, which is the number one thing you don't want to do, especially against Kansas City. You made no adjustments. You fixated on how to outdo Mahomes instead of outsmarting the Kansas City defense. And then you also have to give the players their fair share of the blame as well. Lamar, missing throws, not taking what the defense is giving you, questionable decision making at times. We get that. The team was undisciplined, especially towards the end. Penalties on top of penalties. And it's not even like a little flag for you had that taunting penalty. You had that other one. Was it an unsportsmanlike? Something like that? Yeah, but those cost you. And what does this mean? One, this Baltimore Ravens team has changed a lot. Mike McDonald is the head coach at Seattle. Denard Wilson, your corners coach, who does with your defensive backs. He's now my defensive coordinator. You lost some pieces around you. You lost Patrick Queen to Pittsburgh. You lost Geno Stone to Cincinnati. You lost Devin Duvernay to Jacksonville. Free agents, of course, because you didn't want to pay him. Gus Edwards is now over there with the Chargers. Ronald Darby is a Jaguar. You did add Derrick Henry. Now are you going to use him in the playoffs? And then, if this happens again, we've got to start looking at John Harbaugh a little bit more closely. Because if you really want to say this was arguably their best chance and they blew it because everybody else is getting healthier, the whole AFC is getting better. You have coaches changing, philosophies changing, GMs changing. Considering the moves the AFC have made, this was their best chance to get to a Super Bowl. And the fact that they blew it like that, that's the hill that they died on. I hope they win the division. No. I'm not even finna sit here and spit lies on this internet. It is not a given that they're going to win a division next year. Pittsburgh actually got competent quarterback play. We know what Cincinnati's bringing, even though they lost some pieces, but they also have gained some more. Cleveland, I don't like talking about the Browns because of their quarterback, but we all know what they're capable of. It is not a guarantee that you're just going to win the division. Anyway, on from the Purple Feather Brains, we're going to talk about the Cowboys. So, they lost to the Green Bay Packers at home in the first round of the playoffs, which we know is the wild card round. The one tagline I do have to say about that was a classic Cowboy choke job. Classic. Now, why did this happen? Bottom line, they folded under pressure yet again. The whole team did. You can't just blame Dak. You just can't blame the defense. The whole team didn't come to play. Last year, you could really just blame Dak and the bad play. This year, this is the whole team butt whooping. They got punched in the mouth and immediately folded. Like, how? And how? Like, more reasons to explain, like, how. If we're going to take a look at Dak Prescott, excuse me, you know I have my notes. He waited till the first round of the playoffs to absolutely play his worst game. They were down 48-16 with 6 minutes to go. He had barely 170 yards, 2 picks, and a touchdown. I got it going late. He said that too. I got it going late. Because he did the whole late game shenanigans when the game was way out of hand by halftime. So I got it going late is BS because it was out of hand at halftime. Excuse me. He looked and played nervous, confused, panicked, and somewhat dazed. And we saw it from the first snap. Him and CD were not on the same page at all. At all. Now let's go into the defense. Let's go into that defense because we'll get into Dak Prescott and the ramifications of that a little bit later. You see, I'm doing this in a little segment. But yeah, defense, because they got to get theirs too. They got excuse me. Let me get my thoughts together. They did not stop anything on the ground. And they showed that early. early when Green Bay went down on them and ran and scored. Excuse me. Your back end didn't perform very well. I thought y'all had no concerns after Trayvon Diggs. I thought y'all were straight. Well, there were receivers that had 20 yards of running room before there was a Dallas defender. They were 20 yards apart. That's an issue. That's bad game planning. That's bad game management. That's bad personnel management. We'll get into coaching and all that. I'm actually about to. That's next because that definitely needs to have its due. And then you had Michael Parsons, who had all of 2 tackles and a quarterback hit. Wow. And I did just say, now if you tuned in on Hoop Dreams and Touchdown Queens on Saturday or yesterday, yesterday. Depending on when this video actually comes out, it's Saturday. I said Michael Parsons is a legit generational player, and I still believe that. He just has a tendency not to show up in big games. Ask the 49ers. He doesn't deserve to be looked at as an irritant when he really doesn't do anything but talk too much on his podcast on YouTube. That's the only thing he does. He don't be out here acting a fool. He's a real down-to-earth guy. But yeah, he didn't show up this game. Coaching. That was a coaching whooping. Spanking. Whooping, however you want to take it. They got out-lapped by a lot in every aspect of this game. The lack of adjustments on both sides of the ball. Like, my big thing is when I watched that game and I watched it happen, and then before recording this, I went back to watch some of the highlights and back to go through some of the film and whatnot, so I could really understand what happened. So my opinions changed. They did not. From January to now, they did not. Why in the absolute hell were there 6 DBs on the field for so long when you couldn't stop jack squat for the run? Why would you have 6 DBs on the field when you couldn't stop the run at all? You had predictable play calling all game. Do we need to count to the similar 2 previous playoff failures on how this team gets ejected with predictable play calling? It's not going to get you very far, clearly, because it hasn't done it since I was an angel in the sky. They haven't done anything since about dang near 30 years. The last time they went to a Super Bowl was 1995. I was born in 2001. My mama was living her best life, not thinking about me. That should put that in perspective. Now, if we're talking about the blame here, who gets the slice of the blame? 90% of it, like 80% of it's going to coaching between Dan Quinn and Mike McCarthy. Now, Dan Quinn is now the head coach of Washington. We'll get into that in just a second. The team was unprepared, outcoached, outclassed, again, every phase of the game. No adjustments. And for that, they have to face the blame for that. They have to face the music. Dak, he gets his share. He always panics in the postseason. He plays his worst when the lights are the brightest. We have another poor playoff performance where we see the combined. Listen to this list. We see a panic, confused look. We see where he's not seeing the field correctly. We're seeing these unintelligent turnovers, and we're seeing questionable decision making. He's such a technician through the regular season. I don't know what's the difference between the regular season and the postseason. The pressure. When the pressure's off of you, you could play free. But as soon as somebody just starts pressing him a little bit forward, makes no sense. Defense. Again, you couldn't stop a parked car at a red light. You got the ball ran down your throats from the jump, which opened up the pass, and then it was like, glory, hallelujah, just let it all rain. And what type of ramifications does this loss have? Big ones. Because listen, Mac McCarthy, Jerry Jones is doing the very Jerry Jones offseason. He's doing whatever the hell that is that he does. which is what he wants to do. Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott are going into the final years of the contract. Listen, Dak has a no trade clause. You can't tag him. You're letting him walk out of here you're letting him play on a $60 million cap hit, and then next year it's $40 million that hit, and he walks when the season ends. He'll be technically a free agent, but in March. Yeah, I get it. So there's a hot seat warning for both of them. And he's going to command some big money. I think he'll get it, considering that he's a good regular season quarterback. Kirk Cousins got it. We always put Dak Prescott in the same echelon as Kirk Cousins. If Kirk Cousins got that money, Dak Prescott is going to get more. I don't know if it's going to be in a Cowboys uniform or not. They've lost a lot of major pieces too. Let's keep it a buck. You lose Tony Pollard to my Titans. You lose Dorrance Armstrong to Washington. You lose Tyler Biadasz to Washington. You lose Tyron Smith to the Jets. You lose Dante Fowler Jr. to Washington. Now you need a starting center. You need guards. You need bigger linebackers, and you need better corners and safeties. Minus Trayvon Diggs. And both CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons are due huge paydays. They're not doing much in free agency minus Eric Kendricks, which is a signing that I did like. And the fact that Dan Quinn is now Washington's new head coach is why he took some of y'all's players. I feel like when it comes to Dallas, we are teetering on a very dark day in Dallas. Because Dak might not be there for much longer. Because considering how Jerry's treated him in contract negotiations, I wouldn't want to stay up there anyway. They don't do anything in the playoffs anyway. I mean, partially because Dak is at fault because of that, because he doesn't play well in the playoffs. But minus bad teams, against bad teams. But that's neither here nor there. The next team I'm going to talk about is definitely the Philadelphia Eagles, because I just want to reiterate the fact that what I'm about to tell you about the Eagles absolutely cannot happen again. Because heads will roll. You know, Philadelphia's ownership and management crew are notoriously quick to fire people. Even though that shows dysfunction, but we're not going to go there. We're going to see why they got bounced in the playoffs. They lost at Tampa Bay 32-9 in a wild card round. This is not very surprising considering how they finished the season and how they played throughout the season. But why this happened? They backslid into the playoffs for about a month and a half, and then they proceeded to get boat raced by Tampa. And we all saw that coming, like I said. But how? I'm not necessarily going to sit here and put the players first on this one. This is on coaching and the coaching staff. And what the hell they had going on in Philadelphia last year. There was a huge drop-off from last year. If we're going to be completely honest, and I promise you Philadelphia Eagle fans will tell you, they had been teetering on to what they saw into the wild card all year. All year. We saw cracks of it all year. Both of the previous seasons, not the last season not the season that just ended. The season before that. They ended up leaving for well-deserved jobs. You know, Nick Cannon. Jonathan Gannon is, that's funny. The head coach of the Cardinals. Shane Steichen is the head coach of the Colts. Now, the duo of Sean Desai and Matt Patricia, that was a match made in hell. And Brian Johnson just added more nightmare fuel to the season. And it pretty much plagued their whole season. Almost everybody regressed, from the quarterback to the secondary. Your culture was fried. It was falling apart at the seams. You had drama, social media, antics, sideline theatrics, the whole nine works. You had it all with Philly last year. And part of me was literally, when AJ was acting a donkey, I was like, that's y'all's issue now. But AJ is still a dog, though. I wish I had, well, things happen the way that they happen. There's a reason why John Robinson is not a GM of my team or a GM of any team at that matter. Yeah. And that's all I'm going to say about that. And then I got to talk about the quarterback play with Jalen Hurts because I do have to put some of this on him. He's the quarterback. He's the leader. He did seemingly regress in running the offense. Granted, he had a bag of chips as an offensive coordinator, and Nick Sirianni was still calling the plays. So what? Yeah. He did turn the football over quite a bit this season. I don't know if it was because of injury. I don't know what the scheme, what it was. They turned the ball over a lot. He did. He didn't run the ball nearly as well as we are accustomed to seeing. If you hear paper, I'm getting my note. I'm literally peeping at my notes as well. I should probably stick them up there, but whatever. And yeah, so Jalen definitely had his part in this because I don't know if he was hurt. I don't know if the system they were just not working. I don't know what the issue was, but he had taken a step back. And considering that this team was literally a bad fat penalty away from a Super Bowl, and look at what they did the next year, yeah. He got to shoulder some of it. I hate to have to put it on him, but he had to shoulder some of it. And I love Jalen Hurts. Believe me. The defense, as a unit, was an absolute mess from the word go. Again with Dallas and how they lost their playoff game. They could not stop a parked car at a red light. They couldn't stop anything. They couldn't stop a nosebleed. Your secondary quickly became a liability, which we all know. And if you saw the playoff game where they were running into each other and just looking like they didn't want to be there and they had better things to do and they didn't know what the hell was going on, yeah. And then they weren't getting to the quarterback as much. That unit had led the league in sacks last year. And they were like 15th or 16th or something. Something in the middle of the pack. I don't know. And then if I look at the Philadelphia Eagles from last year, from this past season, the effort was not there for much of the season. Unless it was against the Cowboys or something. Even though one of them games, they literally... Yeah. Not Anthony Davis getting hurt. Damn it! Anyway. Just got a message. Anthony Davis is hurt. He was very instrumental to my Lakers. Yeah. That kind of just blew my top a little bit. But if we're going to talk about the blame here, who gets the biggest part of the blame? The coaching and the coaching staff. And each one gets their fair share of the blame. Brian Johnson, welcome to your tape. You absolutely failed to continue to do what works and tailor the offense to the strengths of Jalen Hurts, and you failed to make it less predictable. If you're going to run the same stuff, run it in different looks. Don't run the same thing in the same look. Otherwise, people are going to know exactly what you got. You went away from they went away from this whole run approach that the team had literally excelled at for whatever reason. Sean Desai and Matt Patricia had the defense looking a hot mess. Especially when the injuries started to pile up. Then I understood. But the secondary, if I'm going to be nice, they were pathetic. And I'm going to keep it at that. Because I could really make a whole video ripping the Eagles secondary from last year. But we're not going to do that. We're on to the next. They weren't getting to the quarterback, and they weren't very disruptive. That defense was not disrupting anything. Much of anything, especially the last half of the year. And then we have Nick Sirianni, who is definitely what I like to call a very immature head coach. Your decision making is questionable. You've not maintained a stable culture. They run rampant up in Philly. And the team looked like a disaster waiting to happen from week 5 on. It's your fault. Defense. You need help all year long. You trade for Kevin Byard, and you somehow get worse. I understand Bradbury had a rough year. Aging, injuries, yeah. But they need better strong safeties, and that's very specific, but they need better strong safeties. And it's like as the year went by and nothing was changing, the effort got worse. Now your run defense progressively also got worse throughout the season. They struggled winning one-on-one matchups. This is what I saw with my own eyes. On the front, there was poor tackling everywhere on the field and at every level, and they weren't playing very disciplined football at all very consistently. The fact that they won 10 games, they won 11 games or whatnot, is a shocker. Pass rush, because they ain't exempt from this either. You went from leading the league to sacks to being 15th. They didn't do well as a unit. They had some key players there, but they did not do well as a unit. They were not generating pressures and situations that I'm used to seeing Philadelphia generate pressures in. And the court offense, because if we're going to break down the defense in the section, so I'm going to break down offense. Predictable, redundant, run game, that split zone concept can be very predictable and redundant, especially if you don't switch up the looks. Decision making has been very questionable. They weren't, like I said earlier, they weren't running the same plays in different looks, trying to make it look different. They were running the same plays in the same look, which is literally the definition of stupidity and insanity, thinking that it's going to work. Pass game. They found out really quick that force feeding it to AJ all the time is not necessarily going to be the answer, and it's not necessarily going to carry you and it's not necessarily going to be conducive to winning all the time. Okay, you have other receivers. Devontae Smith is due a huge payday too. We'll get into the ramifications. Yeah, but speaking of ramifications, I'm going to get into that now because I got one more team, and I think I might get a little bit more heated when we talk about them. The ramifications, Nick Sirianni is definitely, his butt is on fire. Fire. He's on the hot seat. He cooking. My thing is, he needs to grow up, man up, and coach lead this team better. Take accountability for what you could do better as a coach. Stop letting this foolishness get out the locker room about antics and social media. Stop it. Gain control of your locker room. Hot seat. They named Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore as the new defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, which I do like. That hot mess that happened the previous season, it did not happen again. And they've also made several very key additions to their roster. Saquon Barkley, Devin White, Bryce Huff. They Chauncey Gardner-Johnson came back from Detroit. This team knows jobs are on the line here. And they also know that they need to pay Devontae Smith, which kind of exasperates the need for a Super Bowl. Because how long are they going to be able to keep everything together, keep this window open, and before they have to blow it up? Because it's going to happen. Ask me. Now, the next team I'm going to talk about is the 49ers, who lost the Super Bowl to Kansas City. And like I said, I'm not blaming the players for this, even though I'm really not. This will probably be a 10-minute Kyle Shanahan rant. Because he blew this one too. And the more you look at that game, the more I understand that your defense was gassed at the end of overtime and they couldn't stop anything. I get it. They had done their job for 98% of the games. 98% of the game. They had done their job. They did their jobs. They would put you in a position to get those points, to get the lead. But anyway, before I get how did this happen? Why did this happen? What happened? Bottom line, no matter how you see it, Kyle Shanahan cost his team. No matter how you dissect it. And what they did to Steve Wilkes, I hate it. How? Coaching. And number one thing, coaching. So when you abandon the run game, when you're actually getting something on the ground, that's unintelligent. You think you're the smartest person in the room, and you think that you know what you're a genius and you're a know-it-all, and you made yourself look like a donkey of the day. Abandoning the run game when you're actually getting something on the ground with a very good run defense is absolutely unintelligent. Going pass, punt on 2 consecutive drives was delusional behavior and diluted play calling. Overtime was a whole complete catastrophe to dissect. Not being aggressive in clear 4-down territory, knowing that you gave Mahomes an extra down. You deferred when you shouldn't have. He cost that squad that game. And he had the sheer audacity to scapegoat Steve Wilkes. Speaking of that, the mistreatment of Steve Wilkes after this was absolutely mind-boggling. He didn't deserve that. And I understand that the play calling at the end of the game was kind of questionable. But if you look at the whole body of work of what Steve Wilkes did with that defense, he did not deserve to be fired in that manner where all the other openings were filled and he couldn't find another favorable job. This disrespect for a man who had your defense being the best it's been for a decade, to fire him like that and in that type of situation where he would probably find something lower, not what he really deserves, it's disrespectful. And it's sly and it's slick. And then you talk about the outside, he's coming on the outside looking in. What a load of a crap of an excuse. That is pathetic. You know exactly what the hell you were doing bringing him in there. And if you knew that the fit was going to be questionable, why did you hire him in the first place? Why? Because you knew he was a defensive genius. You knew what he does on a good defensive end, on defenses. I understand you had to bring him from the roof box. I understand you had to bring him from the box. At the same time, bruh, they scapegoated Wilkes to take the pressure off of Kyle and thinking that we weren't going to see it. We see right through Shanahan and his bull crap. Nobody is buying that 2 for a penny. Nobody's buying that. And karma's going to bite that whole organization in the butt. Play calling. Insanity is literally doing the exact same thing and doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. If passing 3 times resulted you in a 3-and-out against a very good secondary, why the hell would you do it again? Kicking a field goal when you needed a clear touchdown is unintelligent. We gotta stop the excuses for this man because especially the whole he's a young head coach. He's 0-3 in Super Bowls for the exact same reason in all 3 of them. All 3. 3 blown leads in the exact same manner. We've got to stop excusing this man for being an offensive genius. Maybe in the regular season, but that same offensive genius is what gets his butt kicked in the playoffs. Especially in the biggest game of the year, Super Bowl. Eventually he's going to have to either get over the hump or they're going to have to start looking at him a little weird too. Like, what? Because especially, we're going to have a certain conversation about Shanahan. I'm already there. I think he's overrated. The team is going to change, of course. And yes, there's a big payday looming. They have to figure out what they're needing to do with Ayuk. They need to figure out what they're going to do with Debo. And don't just expect them to run it back because now they have legit competition in the division. The Rams could knock them off. The Lions could have knocked them off. Actually, if we're going to be completely honest, had it not been for Dan Campbell and Brock Purdy, the Lions would be in the Super Bowl. That's not a damn lie. Anyway, they lost Eric Armstead to Jacksonville. Chase Young is now a Saint. Javon Kinlaw is over with the Jets. Ray McCloud is a Falcon. They went and got Leonard Floyd. They went and got... I'm not even going to pronounce that. But his last name is Gross-Matos. I think I pronounced that right. And then they went and got Rocky Sin. Reputations are at stake. Eventually, the 49ers are going to get tired of Shanahan's shenanigans. And they need to make a decision on Ayuk. But that was just our little recap. I know it was 40 minutes, but I get going sometimes. If you like what you heard, you can feel free to subscribe to the channel. You can follow me on Instagram at JDS_sports stories. You can follow me on Twitter at Jory Stories, and you can follow me on Facebook, Jory Sports Stories, just like my YouTube. Subscribe, like, comment, share. Until the next time, I know the next video will probably be my Bucks video. We'll start turning our attention to the NBA because playoffs are starting, and then I'm definitely gonna do one about my Titans. But stick around, stay tuned. I got lots of things in the works. You guys stay blessed and have a good day.